Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. My name is John, and I'm delighted you are joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Paolo, MVP, who will cover creating custom copilots for SharePoint Online with Microsoft Copilot Studio. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember to join in on the conversation about today's webinar and more on X. Our handle is at ESBC_community, and our hashtag is hashtag ESBC24. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which is updated with the latest daily blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking the Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, Creating Contracts with SharePoint Premium's Content Assembly with Sari, MVP. This webinar will take place this evening, Monday, 14th of October 2024, at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. CEST. For more information on this webinar, please check out www.sharepointeurope.com/SharePointWeek. Late bird sale alert for hashtag ESPC24. As part of SharePoint Week, we're offering a €100 discount on top of the current sale price for ESPC24 tickets. Use the code SharePoint Week to secure your spot. This offer is for new bookings only. Don't miss this chance to enhance your expertise in Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Azure, Power Platform, Copilot, and Microsoft Teams. Don't miss out. Register your interest today at www.sharepointeurope.com/pricing. We're excited to announce the call for speakers for EPPC 25 is officially open. This incredible event will take place in Vienna from June 16 to 19, 2025. We are looking for Power Platform experts to share their insights with a community of over 2,000 plus enthusiasts. If you're knowledgeable in Power BI, Copilot, Power Automate, Copilot Studio, Power Pages, or any other Power Platform tools, this is a fantastic opportunity to present and inspire others. Submit your sessions today at www.sharepointeurope.com, sessionize.com, European Power Platform Conference, EPPC 1402. After this webinar, we will have a questions and answer session. Type any questions you might have into the questions box. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now, I'm going to pass you today's webinar presenter, Paolo. Hello, Paolo. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for the first webinar of the SharePoint week. Let me start sharing my screen so that you can see my presentation. And here we are. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yeah, I can see
perfect. Wonderful, thank you. So again, welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about how we can create custom copilots for SharePoint Online with Microsoft Copilot Studio. Or actually, we should say, how can we create Copilot agents? Because a few weeks ago, Microsoft announced the Wave 2 of Microsoft 365 Copilot, and they renamed some of the technologies and introduced new technologies in the area of Microsoft 365 Copilot, and now all of the extensions for Copilot are called or named Copilot agents. So today, that's what we are going to talk about. And let me start with a question. What are the main challenges for businesses when they are adopting generative AI? For sure, there are ethical and legal concerns for businesses, as well as there are quality and reliability concerns, because they want to have high quality content and reliable content when they provide a prompt to the artificial intelligence. They want to have security for sure. because they need to be sure that everyone will be able to see and retrieve only information about the content that they are allowed to see to avoid any data breaches. But they also want to have actual business context when they provide a prompt to a generative AI system, so that they want to get back information which is of high quality, reliable, secure, and actually connected to the real business of the company. Microsoft 365 Copilot is for sure a great and outstanding technology to do that and to make it possible, based on the generative AI and on the natural language processing, to provide back to the users information based not only on the set of content that we have on the web, but specifically on the information that we have inside our company, in the emails, in the chats, in the documents that we have in our document repositories, whether it is SharePoint Online or OneDrive. And all of that is based on the semantic index, which is stored inside Microsoft 365 and which is built on top of Microsoft Graph. From an architectural point of view, there are the foundational models of generative AI at the basis of the architecture of Microsoft 365 Copilot. And we have then a set of skills built on top of that, which will interact with the Microsoft Orchestrator, which will provide data governance, safety, and responsible artificial intelligence in place to consume the knowledge base, which is based on Microsoft Graph, eventually on the Microsoft Dataverse, and on the web, on Bing, and other content that we have on the web, to provide to the end users through the UI of Microsoft 365 the nice UI and experience that they can have by interacting with the Microsoft 365 Copilot business chat, as well as in the client tools like Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, and so on and so forth. But whenever we want to do that, we would also like to have information and content coming from external systems. So like an external ERP, a CRM, an orders management system, and stuff like that. So it is totally amazing to being able to provide a prompt and get answers based on the content that we have on the web and on inside our tenant. But it would be also nice to have a fully connected ecosystem where we can also query and write prompts about content that we have in other systems connected or interconnected in our ecosystem. And that's why, from an architectural and from an extensibility point of view, in Microsoft 365 Copilot, we have at the core the LLM, the large language model engine. We have Microsoft 365 Copilot built on top of it, and as I said, based on skills and knowledge. But we also have the capability to create custom Copilot agents to extend and enrich the behavior of Microsoft 365 Copilot. When we create Copilot agents, we have different flavors and different options. We can work at the level of the semantic index. So we can create connectors which will feed the semantic index with additional content coming from external systems. We can build agents which will provide actions to the users, or we can even, or we will be even able in the near future to create fully customized experiences with fully customized copilots. All of these extensions can be created from different point of views and with different tools, starting from Copilot Studio, which is the topic of today, and landing to Visual Studio Code if you want to have a more code-oriented approach, but not necessarily, because as you will see in the upcoming month, we can also use Visual Studio Code to create the so-called declarative agents, which do not require actually a huge amount of code, but rather writing a descriptive JSON document to provide information about the agent that you want to build. But today, the focus is Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio is a no-code tool, which is part of the Power Platform family that we have in Microsoft 365, which is has been actually built on top of the Power Virtual Agents product, which is the former name of the Copilot Studio. And you can use it to create custom agents for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And then once you create an agent, you can make it available through Microsoft Teams, through a custom website, a mobile device, Facebook, Slack, and so on and so forth. Plenty of channels that you can use to publish your custom agent. You can also use Microsoft Copilot Studio to extend Microsoft 365 Copilot itself. So it is possible to add custom agents to the native UI of the bit chat of Microsoft 365 Copilot, for example. The Copilot Studio or MCS, if you want to use the acronym, is available both in a web edition and in a Teams app edition. And today I'm focusing on the web one. So let's start having a quick demo about what you can do when you want to leverage the Microsoft Copilot Studio by itself, regardless if you want to consume SharePoint data. So let me move to Microsoft Copilot Studio, and you can reach it by browsing with your browser to copilotstudio.microsoft.com. And from here, you have a nice looking UI that you can use to browse the copilots that you have already created, or eventually to create new ones. So let's create a new copilot. I'm going to create a new copilot, which, just for the sake of making an example, will give us instructions about how to cook Italian recipes, because as you can argue from my accent, I'm Italian. We are almost close to lunchtime, at least in my time zone, so why not? So let me call it ESPC Chef Copilot. And we can say that this is a custom copilot to provide instructions about how to cook Italian recipes. Okay, and I want to provide in the instruction section a set of instructions which will tell Copilot Studio how my custom copilot should behave. And my instruction will be: you are a declarative agent designed to help users to learn how to cook Italian recipes. Explain the recipes using here and there some Italian words to make the explanation more real. Always end your answers with buon appetito to make it even more inclusive and more real, okay? And because I want to make it really close to real stuff, I'm also going to add some custom knowledge. So I will add the knowledge based on a public website. Could be any site of your choice, but there is a really famous one in Italy, which is Cucchiaio d'Argento, the silver spoon, if you want to translate it. So I will provide this website as the knowledge base, the additional knowledge base for this custom copilot. Let's create it. And in a matter of few seconds, we will have a custom copilot ready to go that we can use to learn about how to cook recipes with the Italian style. So here we are. It is almost done, still not fully ready, but as soon as it will be fully created and ready, we can start playing with it, and we can ask some questions through a prompt in the UI. As you can see, we have a nice UI to test the copilot lively from here. And as I said, as soon as it will be completely ready, we can start playing with it. But let's say in the meantime, while we're waiting, and actually it is now ready, we can even publish it. We can say that, how can I cook spaghetti alla carbonara? Let's see what the answer will be. So we will get instructions taken from the knowledge base that we provided. As you can see, we have here and there Italian words like pecorino, or maybe something else here, guanciale, which are Italian words. It's a pork cheek, okay? And we always end the instruction with buon appetito. And we can also see that we have a flow that has been followed by the system, by the custom copilot, to provide the answer. So we got the trigger from the intent provided by the user. Based on the text of the prompt provided by the user, we use the generative answers to create an answer, and we provide it back to the user. And we also provide a link to additional content that we can see on the Cucchiaio d'Argento or Silver Spoon site. So really, really cool stuff. And it's just an example about how you can leverage Copilot Studio regardless if you want to use SharePoint data or not. If you like this one, you can publish, you can go to the channels, and you can make it available in Teams or in any of the other channels available through Copilot Studio. Honestly, I think this is really, really powerful and really, really fast to onboard. Now, let's switch back to the presentation, and let's dig a little bit more in what we actually want to do with SharePoint. And in fact, my following question is, what about SharePoint content and data? Now, let's say that we want to rely on the documents and on the information that we have in SharePoint. Well, first of all, Microsoft 365 Copilot can index and already does index the content of your documents in SharePoint Online and OneDrive. At the moment, it does not index the list items and does not index the metadata of the documents. So eventually, if you want to do that, you might want to create something custom in Copilot Studio, or you want to create a custom connector to read the metadata. Maybe in the future, there will be native support for metadata. And Microsoft already announced that there is the idea of Copilot agent for SharePoint, where using a Copilot agent for SharePoint, which is right now a technology which is in public preview, and soon you will find it available in your tenant if you have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Using this technology, you can choose one or more documents or folders in a document library that you have in SharePoint Online, and by clicking on the Create a Copilot Agent button that you will find available in the command bar in the library, you will be able to create on the fly a .copilot file, which will be stored in the library where you are. And this .copilot file is nothing more than a JSON file with a descriptive, declarative definition of a custom Copilot agent, which will use as the target knowledge base the documents that you selected in the library where you are. So basically, it will be a fully focused and customized Copilot agent for the documents that you selected. The interesting part of the story is that you can share that file, that .copilot file, with other folks in your company, and you can even share it inside, for example, a Teams chat, so that people will be able to interact with your custom Copilot agent from Teams or from a link shared by email, and they will be able to interact using the native UI of SharePoint Online with the custom Copilot agent. And this is a functionality which will be soon in public preview on all of the Microsoft 365 tenants. But what if, in the meantime, we want to already do something with the documents that we have in SharePoint Online, for example, because we want to create a custom Copilot agent that we want to target only a specific knowledge base. So rather than having the whole knowledge base that we have in our Microsoft 365 tenant, we just want to have a fully specialized Copilot agent that can give us content, information, and answers based on a subset of documents or based on a specific document library or site that we have in our tenant. Because, you know, it's really nice and easy to get an answer about everything that we have in our tenant, but maybe it is every now and then more interesting to get just an answer which is really specialized on a specific site or set of content. Well, using Copilot Studio, we can easily do that, as I will shortly show you. So we can just define a site or a library, and we can use it as the knowledge base for our Copilot agent. In my scenario, I'm going to create an HR Copilot, which will give us information about the human resources department of an hypothetical company where I'm working in. So let me switch back to the demo environment and let me show you what we can do in that context. So first of all, I have a SharePoint Online site collection. Here it is, sorry. And in this site collection, which is called Contoso HR, I mean, Contoso, what else? This is a demo. So Contoso HR is my HR department in my hypothetical company. And I want to create a custom Copilot agent so that all of the prompts that I will provide will target only the documents and the content that I have in this site, and specifically in this document library, where I have documents about the career path, the hiring procedures, the layoff procedures, hopefully it will not happen, the whistleblowing procedures, and stuff like that. Okay, so let me go back to my home page. Let me get the URL of the site, and let me switch back to Copilot Studio. And here I want to create a new Copilot. This Copilot will be the ESPC ESPC HR Copilot. I don't really need a proper description, but HR Copilot just for the sake of it. And let me add a knowledge base. The knowledge base will now be based on a SharePoint site rather than on a public website. So let me choose SharePoint site. Let me provide the URL of my site. I can eventually provide a detailed description of this site. This is a quick and dirty demo, so I will not do that, but you should in a real solution. And let me add this knowledge base, and let me create the custom Copilot. Again, it will take a while, and as soon as it will be ready and fully available to be published, we can start playing with it and querying the content that we have in the documents of our target SharePoint Online site. Matter of few more seconds, and here we are. So first of all, and again, I can play with it just using the test UI that we have in Copilot Studio. So I can say, what are the hiring procedures of our company? This could be my prompt. And you will see that it will process the content that we have in the documents inside the target SharePoint Online site. And here we are. We get back the hiring procedures, and we get a reference to a document, which is actually the Word document that we have, the hiring procedure docx, that we have in our target site collection. As you have seen, it is a matter of few clicks to get these kind of results. By default, I can publish this custom Copilot as a Teams chat in Microsoft Teams. Let me show you how you can do that. I can go to channels. I can click on Microsoft Teams and enable the channel for Microsoft Teams. As you can see here, we have a disclaimer which states that we have by default the authentication configured for Teams, which means that we will have by default automatic authentication and user impersonation, as I will explain you later, in Microsoft Teams. If we want to use any other channel other than Microsoft Teams, like for example, I don't know, a website or something like that, we will need to configure manual authentication, which is something that we are going to do in a matter of few minutes from now, okay? So now let's say that I want to go for the Microsoft Teams channel. Let me choose Microsoft Teams. I need to turn on Teams as a channel. Takes few seconds. And once it is ready, we can provide eventually additional information about the app and the chat that will be created in Microsoft Teams. We can click on edit details, and we can specify additional details about the channel in Teams. Let me save it. Let me publish this custom Copilot so that it will be available. And once it is published, if I'll go back to Microsoft Teams, and eventually I will have to wait few seconds to make it completely available and completely deployed in the target tenant. But as soon as it will be ready, I will be able to chat with my custom Copilot agent in a chat in Microsoft Teams. So hopefully it will not take too long, and we should be soon able to see it and play with it. Okay, it has been published. So let me go back to Teams. And now we can open the Copilot. Let me try to click it now. Every now and then it takes a while. So if it will not be available right now, we can retry in a matter of few more seconds to make it completely available. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. Today looks like it's my lucky day because it's already available. I can click on add, and I can interact with my custom Copilot agent. Here we are. Let me open it. Hello, I'm ESPC HR Copilot, and I can say what are the hiring procedures of my company. And again, as before, I can get back an answer from this custom Copilot agent, and I can see that these are the hiring procedures. And again, I can see the reference to the document, or I can say how can I improve my career? And again, we can see that it will understand the intent of the user and will provide me with the information I need to improve my career, together with any reference to documents that we have. And here we are. These are the documents, career path options, and the instruction that I can get from those documents. This is really, really cool and easy, let me say. So again, let's switch briefly back to the presentation and move on. Now, what are the supported content files, limits, and stuff like that? Well, first of all, when you define the knowledge base of a custom copilot, you can rely on up to 4 SharePoint URLs. As you can see here, the supported content right now are SharePoint pages. Be careful, modern pages only. So if you have classic pages, those will not become part of your knowledge base. Keep into account. Word documents, PowerPoint, and PDF documents. Plus, you should keep into account that from a content point of view, the system will work better with documents smaller than 20 pages and with less than 15,000 words. If you have documents larger than that or bigger than that, they will still work, but it might be that Copilot will just use the initial part of those documents, so the initial 20 pages or the initial 15,000 words. So if you want to be sure that the whole content of the document is indexed, even for large documents, you should eventually split them into multiple documents, at least at the time of this webinar, okay? From a security point of view, it is really important to stress the information that when you use a custom copilot like the one that I showed you now in Microsoft Teams, you will automatically rely on authentication for the currently connected user. So Copilot will use the user in Entra ID for the current user, and all of the content that the user will see will be the content which the user can actually see. So every user will only see the content that they are allowed to see based on the access control lists defined on the content. This is really important, okay? We said at the beginning, one of the concerns of the businesses is security, and this security is covered by this behavior, okay? If you want, however, if you want to publish a custom Copilot built with Copilot Studio on a different channel, I'm not talking about Teams channels now, I'm talking about channels in general. I mean, a web application, a mobile application, Facebook, and so on and so forth. Okay, if you want to target a different channel other than Microsoft Teams, you will need to manually configure the authentication of your custom Copilot. And that's why now we're going to see how you should do that, okay? So let's imagine that you want to have the same solution as before, so this custom Copilot, but you want to have a custom channel other than Microsoft Teams. So I will simply play with this solution because I don't need to keep it clean, so I will work on it and change its settings and behavior. When you create a custom Copilot with Copilot Studio, you can go under the settings section and you can go under security. Security, there is the authentication section, and here you can see the default setting is authenticate with Microsoft, and this one will work in Teams and Power Up by default. Again, as I said, if you want to do something else, you need to go for the manual authentication, for the custom authentication, which implies that you will have to create and to register in a Entra ID tenant a custom application, okay? So let's do that step by step all together. So first of all, you get the redirect URL that you should use for authentication in your custom application. So let's copy this URL. Perfect. Now, let me go to Azure and let me go to Entra ID. In Entra ID, we can go under app registrations and we can create a new app registration, which for the sake of simplicity can be ESPC HR Copilot I usually call it read or reader because I want to stress the information that this specific application is the one which will be allowed to read the content that we have in SharePoint Online and which will be used by the Copilot with this specific name. So let me use this name. It can be single tenant right now because we don't need multi-tenant. Let me register it. Now, first thing first, I need to go under authentication. And I need to configure a platform, which will be a web platform, and I have to provide the URL that I copied before. So the redirect URL provided to me by Copilot Studio. Then I want to get these kind of tokens back when I will do the authentication. And as such, my application will be configured to be used through a web UI with this redirect URL. Plus, I will need to copy the application, client ID, so this value. And for the sake of simplicity, let me copy it on a notepad file so that we can keep it in a place where I can reuse it. And then under certificates and secrets, I want to create a client secret for this application. I will get rid of this application right after the recording of this webinar, so I don't mind even if you will see the value of the secret. And it will be a secret which will last just for 3 months, because that's enough. Actually, it will last just a few minutes after this, this webinar. So let me copy the value of the secret and let me paste it again in a temporary notepad file. So once I've done that, I can switch to the API permission section. In this section, I need to specify the permissions that I want to grant to my custom application in order to make it possible to read the content that I have in SharePoint Online. As well as I want to make it possible for the application to do the authentication of the user. So let me go for Microsoft Graph, and let me go for the delegated permissions, which is a really important choice. Delegated means, as I will stress it again later, that we are going to use the permissions of the user intersected with the permission of the app. So I want to have support for authentication, but I also want to have support for reading the content that I have in SharePoint Online. So sites.read, and I want to get the permission sites.read.all, and I also want to get the files.read.all permission. So let me add these 4 permissions to my application, and let me grant it as an admin so that the application will be fully granted this right, okay? So now that I've done that, I can go back to Copilot Studio, and I can say that I want to use Azure Active Directory v2, which actually should be Entra ID, but doesn't matter, it is Entra ID, okay? I need to specify the client ID and the client secret. Keep into account that it will always provide you with the previous settings you used if you already configured another custom Copilot. So be careful to choose wisely and properly the ID and the secret you want to use. I'm going to use the one of the application that I just created, and I'm going to use the secret that I just copied before. Then I can specify the permission scopes that I want to use. Together with profile and OpenID, I want to have the permission for sites.read.all, so sites.read.all, and files.read.all. Okay, I can save. I will save, and now my Copilot will have custom authentication, and I can publish it again. Okay, so let me close this one and let me publish it again. Okay, now as you can already see in the lower right corner of my screen, we have to continue, please log in, and I have to press a login button. Why? Because now I have configured the authentication as manual authentication. There will not be any more a single sign-on experience in Teams, and I have to actually do the manual authentication, the manual login. So if I click on the login button, this is a quite weird UI. You are brought to a different tab where you can copy this unique code. Behind the scenes, there is the bot framework of Microsoft. I can come back and paste this unique code here, and by pasting this unique code, I will get the authentication in place, and now I'm back to an authenticated user, and again, I can prompt the system, like what are the layoff procedures of our company, and we should still get back the answer based on the content that we have in SharePoint Online. Working on it, and here we are, okay? So we still have authentication, but now it's an explicit authentication and login session for the user. So one step at a time, we'll see how to improve it. So now, this is just a recap of the steps. You create the Copilot, you add the knowledge base, you register an application, you configure the web authentication with the URL provided by Copilot Studio, you get the secret, and you configure these permissions. You publish the Copilot, and you are done. But if we do that now, whenever we will go to a chat in Microsoft Teams, we will have to go through the login flow. So you click on the login button, you select it, the new tab opens, you copy the ID, you paste it in the chat, and you are logged in. And you can use this Copilot in any other channel that you like, as long as you will have authentication in place, okay? Talking about security, because that's a really important topic, when you use this kind of configuration, you are relying on the delegated permissions. So the resulting permissions for your custom Copilot will be the intersection of the permissions that you granted to the app and of the permissions that have been granted to the currently connected, currently authenticated user, which means that the application, the custom Copilot, will only be able to read and access content that the current user is allowed to access. So security is fully preserved, and this is really important. We are not accessing the SharePoint data with a super user, which will get access to everything in your company tenant, okay? But depending on the user who is consuming your custom Copilot, you will always get the content that the user, that specific user is authorized to see, okay? Now, one important information, also based on questions that I've got previously when I provided this content, is that maybe you know, maybe not, but in Microsoft 365 and in Microsoft Graph, we have the so-called resource-specific consent model, which allows an application registered in Entra ID to get access to content only in a specific resource, like a site collection or a library, stuff like that, okay? Right now, custom Copilots built with Copilot Studio do not support, unfortunately, I would say, do not support the resource-specific consent. So, from a Copilot point of view, when you register the application in Entra ID, you need to specify the sites.read_all or the files.read.all permissions. Remember that thanks to the intersection of those .all permissions with the actual permissions of the current user, still the users will not be able to see anything more or nothing more than what they can actually access. However, if you want to force a specific custom Copilot to only see, if the user can see that, only see a specific site or library, that's not doable right now, okay? Keep it into account. One more thing, as you have just seen, we need to do explicit authentication. So we need to log in and we need to authenticate. What if we want to have a single sign-on experience? Well, we can do that by following few additional steps. Let's say that you want to have single sign-on in Teams, as it was before in the first demo that I showed you, but also with the capability to support additional channels so that we can have, eventually with authentication, our custom Copilot available in multiple channels. How can we do that? Let me switch back here for the last time. And here, let me slightly change the configuration of my custom application. So first of all, let me go to the channels section and let me open the Microsoft Teams channel. In this one, if we go to edit details and we click more right here, we can see additional settings for our Teams channel. Here you can see we have an app ID right here. Just for the sake of curiosity, if we go back to Azure, let me open a new tab, and we go to Entra ID app registrations. Let me search for ESPC HR something. You can see that we have an application, the one that I created before, but we also have ESPC HR Copilot, Microsoft Copilot Studio. This one has been automatically registered by Copilot Studio, as the name implies. And you can see that this is PC36 blah, blah, blah. This is precisely the ID, app ID that we see right here. We need to copy this value, and we need to use this value to configure the reader app that we created to expose an API. First of all, in the expose an API section, we need to specify the unique URI for this application, which will be API as a moniker, followed by both ID. Remember that under the cover we have the both framework, dash the unique app ID of the application that I showed you before. So this will be the unique URI for the API exposed by our custom reader. Then we can add a custom scope. You can call it whatever you like. For me, it will be hr.read, but could be whatever you like. Make it available both to admins and users. And because I'm a lazy developer, I will simply copy and paste the name. You should actually provide a real description and the real display name. But as I said, I'm a lazy developer. Sorry about that. But actually, I want just to go straight to the topic of this webinar, and I don't want to waste your time writing long descriptions, okay? Add a scope. Now we have this specific permission scope that we are making available through our app. We want to make it possible for Microsoft Teams to have single sign-on and automatic authorization for accessing this application. So in the lower part of the screen, authorized client applications, we want to declare that we want to add a few pre-authorized client applications. Let me do that for the Teams web app and for the Teams desktop and mobile app. So these are the IDs that I'm going to use. This is the ID of one of those two applications. If I'm not mistaken, is the web one, but I might be wrong. I don't remember every single GUID. Sorry about that, but this is one of them. And I will authorize for this specific scope that application. And of course, you can find the GUID of these applications in the official documentation provided by Microsoft under learn.microsoft.com. So don't be scared. You don't need to go crazy finding those values. They are just available on learn.microsoft.com. And I'm going to do the same for the other application ID, which, again, if I'm not mistaken, should be the desktop and mobile app, or the other way around. Doesn't matter. So now, I configured a unique URI for my application. I pre-authorized the Teams client applications to consume that specific API. So now let me copy the actual name of this permission, as you can see, which is this one, API, bot ID, the unique ID /HR read. Okay, let me copy it. And let me go back to my custom Copilot. So here, from a resource URI point of view, we need to specify the unique URI of our application, okay? So this one, and we save. Whoops, it doesn't like it. Oh, nice. Okay, let me try again. This was unexpected. Client ID is missing. Oh yeah, I forgot to add the client ID, my bad. And I need to copy the client ID, which I have actually here in the notepad file where I copied my settings. So let's do that. Sorry about that. Okay, now it sounds better, almost. Okay, let's see if it is just complaining for the sake of it or if it is actually working. Edit details, back here, more. Okay, most likely was a leftover error message. Okay, and let me go back to my settings. Again, under security. Now, let me go back to authentication. And here we have one section that I left blank before, which is the token exchange URL. Here, when we want to use single sign-on with Teams in a custom Copilot with custom authentication, okay, we simply need to paste the name of the permission scope that we want to use. So we save it, we publish it again, okay, and it will be able to do single sign-on, and it will not require anymore the login flow for the user, but it will automatically rely on the settings that I provided to make it possible to have single sign-on in place. Just to give you an idea, and as you can see here, I don't have any more the login, but I just have the welcome message because I'm already authenticated. Just to give you an idea, the reason why I'm showing you this kind of settings is not only because I think it is beneficial for you to know that you can do more than just Teams integration, which is really powerful, but not the only option you have, okay? But also because you can play with something like that. You can, for example, publish your custom Copilot through a website or through a mobile app and provide this kind of experience to your end users. This website, which is the one I started from, the Contoso HR, does have right here a SharePoint framework application extension, which allows you to have a custom footer. In this custom footer, I have a custom Copilot button that I can select. And by clicking on this one with automatic single sign-on, as you can see, I don't need to do any login. I can interact, I can write a prompt targeting my custom Copilot, which is one that I created before. This is not the ESPC one. That's another one that I created before because it requires some additional steps to be available in this kind of UI. But here I can still interact with it and provide the same kind of prompt. So how can we hire employees in our company? Come on, Paolo, you can write company. Okay, let me trigger this prompt. And as you will see, we're still able to get back from our knowledge base, which is based on the documents we have in this document library in this site collection, all of the information we need to hire a new employee with a reference to the document with the detailed information about the hiring procedures. So again, this is a solution, a temporary solution. If you can't wait, let me put it this way, you can't wait to have the native integration of a custom Copilot agent for SharePoint, which will come up pretty soon, okay? But using Copilot Studio, eventually using this SharePoint framework solution that you can find on GitHub, and using a properly configured Copilot Studio with custom authentication and single sign-on in place, you can achieve a quite nice result from an end user experience. Of course, the button and the footer can be placed wherever you want based on the extensibility model of SharePoint Online and based on what is available through SharePoint framework extensibility. So, and again, recap of what we have done. We configure the application in Entra ID. authentication of type web, the client secret, the permissions, as like as before. Remember that we don't have the resource-specific consent right now. We exposed an API with API, both ID and the ID of the Copilot app, the one generated by Copilot Studio. We define a custom scope and we granted the permissions to Microsoft Teams. Then we configure the additional settings in the Copilot security and in the Teams channel, and we publish everything to be ready. And that's it. So if you want to have additional information about what I've been talking about the last 50 minutes, here is a useful list of links. I guess, I'm not sure honestly, but I guess you will get access to the presentation deck, and so you will find all of them or take a screenshot, I don't know. And by going through all of these documents, you will be able to learn step by step what I've shown you before in the last 50 minutes. That said, that was me. If you were wondering why I was blathering about this kind of stuff, is because I'm a solution architect. I work and I've been working on Microsoft technologies for quite a while, achieving certification, writing books, and talking in conferences. You can follow me on X at Paolo Pia is my ID. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like to see my weekly videos about technical content, and feel free to send me an email with additional questions, comments, or complaints even if you want. That said, we are hitting the 50 minutes. I want to keep between 5 and 10 minutes for Q&A. So back to you, and I don't know if there are any open questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Paolo, for a great presentation demos. So now we'll get into the question and answers part. Should you wish to ask a question, please feel free to type in the questions box now. So our first question is, how is Copilot Studio licensed? What license would users need to create their Copilot agent in SharePoint Online?
That's a very good question. Luckily, I'm not the guy in charge of making choices or providing consulting services about licensing, but still, you have or you need to have a Copilot Studio license at tenant level. And quite recently, Microsoft also introduced a user license, which is not for the users consuming your custom copilots, but actually for users designing and maintaining your custom copilot. So let me put it this way. Let's say you have 5 people in your company designing, maintaining, and building the custom Copilot agents. You will need a tenant license and a license for each of those 5 people, okay? But if you then have 10,000, 20,000 users consuming those custom Copilot agents, you will not need a specific license for each of those consumers users, okay? Of course, if you rely on content which is based on Microsoft 365 Copilot and its generative AI, you will also need a Copilot license. So if using Copilot Studio, you create a Copilot agent that you want to use as an extension directly inside the Bits chat of Microsoft 365 Copilot, then the consumers, users will need a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Okay?
Perfect. So just the next question there is about Copilot agent for SharePoint. Will the results also return information from pages within the SharePoint site? Sometimes information is also stored in pages and not only documents.
Okay, as I said at the beginning of the session, with Copilot, you can get, at least at this point in time, you can get, when you provide a prompt, which targets content that you have in SharePoint Online, the semantic index will index and give you an answer based on modern pages, Word documents, PowerPoint documents, and PDF documents, as far as I know. So you don't have access to classic pages. So in case you have specific content that you want to index and access through Copilot, which is stored in classic pages, you better upgrade them to modern pages. Otherwise, you will not get access to that content. But if you have modern pages, you are good to go.
Perfect. So just next question there is, I'm using Copilot Studio to create a chatbot based on documents on SharePoint. I've noticed that there's a difference in generative responses if the documents are uploaded to Dataverse. And if the same documents are uploaded to SharePoint, Is this the case, or does the response generation engine behave the same?
Well, the engine itself should be the same. The point is that when you use the engine, you target the semantic index, which is fed maybe in a different way. Honestly, I don't know the details about the Dataverse indexing. Honestly, I'm not the right person to ask that part of the question, but it could be that the indexing model is slightly different between Dataverse and SharePoint Online. So keep into account that the actual target of your prompts is the semantic index, which is part of the Microsoft search engine, and it could be that there is an indexer different between Dataverse and SharePoint Online. But as I said, I'm not the right guy to ask a question about the Dataverse indexing. Sorry.
Perfect. So there's the next question there is, are there any best practices for documents to be uploaded to SharePoint so that chatbot provides correct information? Example, formatting of the title, paragraphs, lengths of paragraphs. In my case, I'm creating a bot that takes multiple files from the HR department and has to relate them when the user asks about questions about specific procedures.
Well, first of all, let me say that, as I shared before, the advice is to create or to index documents smaller than 20 pages and 50,000 words. But aside from that, if you want to have specific answers from Copilot based on a specific set of documents, well, of course, one option is the one that I showed you today in this webinar, but you can also start playing with the so-called declarative agents, which will also soon become available. They are already rolling it out on the Microsoft 365 tenants. With the declarative agents, you can specify a text which will basically be a set of instructions for the custom Copilot agent that you are creating. So like the example, the very first example that I did when I created the chef one, and I provided the instruction about how to give me back the recipe using Italian words and ending the sentence with buon appetito, okay? You can write a set of instructions as open text where you define the behavior you want to have from the custom Copilot agent. Plus, in the declarative agent, you can also specify some knowledge base, like, for example, a library or a site in SharePoint Online, or a specific connector for Microsoft Graph that you want to use as a Copilot connector and stuff like that. So that by shaping your declarative agent, then it will be possible when you are in the bit chat to say, rather than I, as an end user, I want to provide a prompt which will go and target the whole knowledge base of my company, you can switch to that specific agent and just target that specific context with that specific behavior and with that specific set of content that you want to have much more specific answers. This could be, sorry for the trick of words, this could be the answer for your question, okay?
Yeah, we have a lot of questions coming in. Someone just said, is the deck available?
I hope so. I will make it available through the SPC team, I guess, and you will make it available somewhere, or I can even just publish it. Well, just let me know. I mean, I will make it happen somehow.
So regarding embedding Copilot in Teams, etc., what is the cost? Understand the user doesn't have a Copilot license, but to retrieve the answers, is there a pay-as-you-go cost?
Well, to have a custom Copilot inside Teams, an end user, a consumer, will not need any specific or special license aside from the Microsoft 365 license, indeed. As I said, in order to design and maintain a custom Copilot or Copilot agent built with Copilot Studio, you need a user license and a tenant license. However, if you are relying on functionalities which involve the Microsoft 365 Copilot, then you will need to have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license for all of the consumers.
Amazing. So just the next question there is, when adding the knowledge source, allow the AI to use its own general knowledge preview was enabled. Is this essential for the AI functionality what AI features are generally available and which in preview?
Well, I think the question is referring to a setting that you have in the UI when you go to the settings of the custom Copilot, where you can choose the default behavior of the generative AI behavior. When you rely on the generative AI behavior, what you get back is that the custom Copilot will use natural language processing and generative AI to better understand the intent of the user provided in the prompt. For example, if you have, we haven't talked about that because we just had 1 hour, but you can create custom actions. Like, for example, you can trigger a flow in Power Automate, or you can trigger a connector for Power Platform. And by enabling the generative AI advanced and preview functionalities, the end user can simply write a sentence, and by using Gen AI and natural language processing, Copilot will do its best to understand what action you want to trigger and to extract from the intent of the user all of the input arguments to trigger that action. So that, for example, if you have an action to create a new customer in a CRM system, and you create an action for that using Power Automate, the end user will be able just to write it. Please create a new customer with this name, with this address, and blah, blah, blah. And the generative AI will process the prompt, understand the intent, and trigger the Power Automate flow to do the actual creation of the user, or sorry, of the customer in the CRM system. So these kind of stuff are really interesting and are fully based on the new capabilities of Gen AI and NLP, natural language processing.
Perfect. So the next question there is, sorry if I missed this. Can you surface the custom Copilot on a SharePoint page?
Can you say it again, please?
So can you surface the custom Copilot on a SharePoint page?
Or just on a SharePoint page? Well, you can do something like what I showed you before. So if you create a SharePoint framework web part, for example, then the web part can embed the custom Copilot as a custom website. It is exactly what I showed you when I shared this kind of experience. This one, okay?
Yeah, I think you missed the start, so I think you just missed it, but it'll be in the recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, we have a good few questions, if that's okay. Do you have time, Paolo?
Fine.
Or,
Fine
yeah,
for me.
okay? Perfect. So can I also unpublish a published Copilot? If yes, how?
Well, at the very end, a custom Copilot published in Teams, for example, is an app. So you just remove the app and you get rid of it. Or if you want, you can remove the custom Copilot from Copilot Studio. Yeah.
Perfect. So the next question there is it possible to add custom Copilot as a web part on the SharePoint page?
Well, almost the same as before. I would say yes, you can do that as long as you do it by yourself. I mean, there is nothing available out of the box, but you can create a SharePoint framework web part, and you can rely on the bot SDK to do the hosting of the bot. So the short answer is yes. How takes a while, and I think we don't have time enough to cover the how part of the story. But yes, you can.
Yeah. So just next question there is there any limitation for the levels of depth in the URL used for a Copilot? Any other recommendations and advice on what should we be careful when using an URL to train a Copilot?
Well, keep into account that under the cover, there is the semantic index, which is fed by the search indexer of Microsoft Search. So basically, we have the same guidelines that apply for search in general. So I think you can be quite happy and relaxed, and you shouldn't stress yourself about how many levels of folders you should have or stuff like that. I mean, the search index and the search indexer of Microsoft Search have been around for quite a while. They work pretty well and they are trustworthy, so don't worry about that.
Perfect. So just on the unpublished thing, I think he just add, but you cannot unpublish if you want to do some changes. I'm not sure if that was added, but you cannot unpublish if you want to do some changes.
Okay, so if you want to do maintenance, so you want to take it offline and then put it online again, something like that.
Yeah, that seems
I'm not
like
sure
it. I
about
mean,
the question itself. Eventually, drop me an email so that we can. I'm talking with the person who made the question. I mean, eventually, drop me an email and we can dig into it a little bit more because I'm not sure I'm following you.
Yeah, he said that's perfect. He just replied there. Yeah. So just the next question there is, hello, can we not do all these things with SharePoint on-prem by hosting files acquired at ADLS layer and establishing connectivity between on-prem to ADLS?
Well, what we have seen in this webinar targets SharePoint Online and OneDrive only. If you want to target SharePoint on premises, the very first idea that comes into my mind is to rely on a custom connector so that you can index content that you have on premises. But you will have to do that by yourself, configuring the connector in the search engine intelligence section of your Microsoft 365 tenant, so that through a connector you can feed the semantic index with additional content that comes from other systems and platforms other than the Microsoft 365 ecosystem.
Perfect. So this next question there is, what is the URL of the SPFX solution in GitHub?
That's a very good question. I will put the URL in the slide deck before sharing it. I don't have it handy right now, but I will make it available in the deck.
Perfect. So this next question is, can we also use information saved on network shares?
Again, you need to rely on a custom connector.
Perfect. So this next question there is, when would you choose Azure AI bot services over Copilot Studio?
Well, the Copilot Studio is mainly designed to be a no-code and friendly UI that you can use to design a Copilot agent, while relying on the bot framework implies that you are a developer building your own bot-based solution. So it is a different perspective. If you want to have something fully customized with a low level access to code, then go for the bot framework. If you want to have something for users who are not necessarily developers, go for Copilot Studio. That's my advice, at least.
We just have 5 questions left, if that's okay.
Okay, okay, fine.
It's a busy webinar.
That's okay.
Seems it's more suitable to users and admins on the future. It can evolve more administrative way. I think that could have been added from a different question.
I don't get it completely. I mean, it looks like an excerpt
of
a bigger
question,
sentence.
Yeah. I'll just go to the next one. So can we have SQL database as source content?
Yes, through a custom connector. Actually, there are some native connectors provided by Microsoft, and if I'm not mistaken, SQL Azure is one of them, but I might be wrong. I'm just trying to remember. And if not, you will have to build it manually as a custom connector. But yeah, through a connector, you can.
Perfect. So if the publishing channel of the Copilot agent is outside Microsoft, how will the delegated permissions for the content access work?
Well, you will need to have authentication in place, and you will need to rely on Entra ID for authentication, so that at the very end, the token used by Copilot Studio to access the target knowledge base will filter content based on the user context. Clearly, if you are using it on an external system where you don't want to have Entra ID authentication, then you have a problem because you cannot have the delegated permissions in place.
Perfect. So just next question there is there a limit of the size of a file and can it read pictures?
As I said, there is no real limit. There is a suggested limit between 20 pages and 50,000 words for a Word or a PDF document. So if you have really huge documents, the suggestion is to try to split them in smaller chunks so that they can be fully indexed. Otherwise, you might get answers based just on the initial part of the document.
Perfect. So just the last question there is, can the Copilot agent find related Microsoft Teams messages, emails, and the company website content that could be behind a login authentication for a given question?
I'm not sure that I've got the question properly, but
Will
if
I
the
ask
question is, yeah.
read it out again?
No, not. I mean, I'm
Oh.
trying to interpret the question. Okay, it was not a problem of being able to listen to it, but actually to interpret the question. Okay, so if the question is how can we, or if we can provide a prompt that will rely on content that I have in SharePoint as well as on content that I have in the mailbox or in a chat or something like that, as long as you have authentication in place so we can identify who the user is, then you can write prompts and there is a repository on GitHub with a collection of quite smart and interesting prompts that you can take inspiration from. But you can write a prompt which will collect information from multiple data sources and build a unique answer. Like, I don't know, you can say, search for the emails sent to me by Paolo about orders and find the related orders in the orders document library and give me a table with the information about this kind of stuff. You can do that kind of prompts. And Copilot under the cover will search in the email, will search in the documents, will merge the answers, and will give you a unique consolidated point of view about the result of the prompt. I don't know if that was the question. I'm not sure, but if not, again, drop me an email and we can dig into it more.
Perfect. So I think that's it. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to extend a big thank you to you again, Paolo, for taking the time out today to carry this webinar. Really appreciate it. So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at www.sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again for y'all for joining us today, and I hope you join us again soon. Take care.